Hello and welcome to the Listen Up Accord Show, brought to you by the Division of Youth Affairs in the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Community Empowerment. I am your host for today, Dwayne Gibbs. This platform provides young people with an opportunity to speak on various concerns and issues of the day, but most importantly, offer their concerns as well. In addition to that, it provides experts with the opportunity to come and give their 2 cents to help pan out things. So on last week's show, we spoke about COVID-19 and education. We spoke with 6 panelists comprising of 3 educators and 3 students, all offering their experiences and expertise on the topic at hand. And we came to one unanimous decision at the end of last week's show that we all need to work together. When I say all of us, I mean teachers, parents, and students all need to come together in a unified effort to fight against the current situation with COVID-19. The last thing we discussed at the tail end of last week's show, funny enough, was mental health. And as fate will have it, that is the theme for today's show. So today's topic will be mental health, and we'll be going in depth with 5 new panelists who are very eager to speak to you, as we are eager to speak to them as well. Before we get to that though, we have to remind the listeners out there that there are giveaways available for those who are the most engaging in the comment section. So if you go on the Division of Youth Affairs Facebook page, that is where you can like, comment, and share, and the most engaging person in the comment section will get a prize. That prize is a dinner for 2 at Pure Oceans Restaurant in Divi South Winds Hotel. Divi South Winds is a beautiful resort on the south coast with a fantastic beach view, and the best part about it is that it's adjacent to St. Lawrence Gap. So you can slip right out the back and be part of the night's activities offered in St. Lawrence Gap. There's a lot of wonderful things going on there. So Pure Ocean Restaurant in Divi South Winds, a dinner for 2 for the most engaging person in the comment section. So we urge you to get down there and keep it active. So what I'm going to do today is introduce our 5 panelists. Let's go. Our first panelist is Miss Marissa Maria Ragabar. She is currently a 3rd-year student at the University of the West Indies, KFL campus. She's in her final semester pursuing a psychology degree. She also intends to pursue her master's in sports and exercise psychology, where her main focus will be targeted towards mental health. Next up, we have Ms. Tashira Dulal Arthur. She's a student of psychology and a research assistant at the University of the West Indies. Her main research areas are mental health, statistical analyses, psychometrics, and research methodology. Next up, we have Dr. Keo Ford St. Hill. She is a product of the University of the West Indies, having studied at both Mona and KFL campuses. After receiving her MBBS, she went on to complete the Doctors of Medicine in Psychiatry. She is currently a senior registrar at the Psychiatric Hospital to the Child Guidance Clinic. Next up, we have Ms. Kim Jones, who is a guidance counselor at the Commonwealth Secondary School, former probation officer, graduate of the Ohio State University with a Bachelor's of Arts in Criminology and Criminal Justice, and she's currently pursuing studies in higher education with a focus on student administration. In addition to that, she's a SAT facilitator, tutor, and coordinator. And last but not least, we have Mr. Renwick Gaskin, who has 33 years of experience and worked at the psychiatric hospital for about 20 of those 33 years. He is a registered mental nurse and registered nurse with a master's degree in nursing administration. He is presently an educator at the Barbados Community College in the subject areas of psychiatry, nursing management, leadership and trends in nursing, and transcultural nursing. So those are our panelists for today, and we're looking forward to speaking to them when we come back after this short break.
A mental health problem, and I see a psychiatrist. Well, the person that I went to was a psychologist at the Edgar Cochrane Polyclinic, because they now give birth to children. I was young. I was going through something. I didn't understand it I didn't understand what was going on. So it was a friend who actually went through the same thing, and she told me, well, you have to seek help. And she gave me the number to call, and I called. and I get an appointment, and I express myself and my emotions and how I feel and how I act. So it's best you go and speak to somebody and not keep it all inside, because it really take a toll on you. It take a toll on me for sure. I keep everything inside, ain't nobody to talk to. The best person to talk to is somebody who is professional, who gets you, who understands, and who cares, and who shows compassion, and who can help you through what you're going through. So it's best to seek a psychologist.
And welcome back to the Listen Up Accord show. And as I said before, today's topic is mental health, and we'll be taking a very deep dive with our panelists today. Dr. Ford St. Hill, the young lady in question who was just in the video speaking about taking the initiative to go to speak to someone because she was experiencing something mentally she could not quite explain. I think that was very brave on her part, because as you would know, our history with psychiatry and psychologists and everything and counseling in general is not very well recognized in Barbados. My question to you, do you think at this point in time mental health is something that is being taken seriously enough in this country?
Mental health generally in this country and as well as internationally has come to the forefront. We've always been in the background, and as you already said, the society has had a strange relationship, particularly with the public mental health system. And the pandemic has actually caused persons to take a more in-depth look at their mental health and to see the importance of maintaining mental health and actually being more in tune with when there are changes in their mental health and seeking help.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ford St. Hill. Tashira, I want to ask you, based on what you heard just now, is there anything that you would like to chime in with? Especially as a younger person, you know, there's a lot more pressures on us today than people would want to recognize, because they say you're young, you don't have anything to worry about. But I feel as if younger people have a lot of things to worry about in this day and age, especially dealing with a pandemic.
Yeah, it is definitely a challenge for a lot of young people such as myself and younger persons and me as well. But in general, as you said, in Barbados, there tends to be a culture which emphasizes the fact that young people, you know, because we don't have certain challenges going on, such as financial issues like dealing with bills, that there is no reason for us to be experiencing any type of mental health challenge. But the fact of the matter is that mental health is such a wide array, includes such a wide array of stressors and problems that we go through on a daily. And with that being said, anyone at any age can experience a mental health challenge. And in that light, if you, no matter what your age is, if you don't think that you can handle it by yourself, then it is definitely necessary to go and seek the relevant assistance. And so I think that one of the most important trends and steps that we need to take as a country is promoting mental health rather than avoiding it.
I agree with your sentiments 100%, Tashira, because at the end of the day, it has to become normalized in our society for the average person to feel like it's even worth talking about. Ms. Jones, as a person who is a school counselor and everything, you deal with students on a daily basis on very intimate levels. Is it customary for children or students to come to you and express they have something on their mind, whether it's, you know, emotional load, just school stress or anything like that? Is it customary for students to come and just initiate conversation with you?
I will say that it has, the relationship has gotten better over the years. Usually we would have to sometimes go to a student and ask a question and ask if they're okay and ask if they need help. Within the past 4 or 5 years, I can honestly say, maybe even 6 years, I can honestly say that students have been more forthcoming, and they are seeking you out and saying, ma'am, I am not okay. Ma'am, I don't know what is going on, but something is not right, and I need help. And I have been seeing that trend, and especially with the COVID pandemic, students have been very much coming forward. We created a self-referral form at Commonwealth School. Within the space of 48 hours, we had almost 25 students sending in saying that, their social concerns, emotional concerns, and they were willing to not only speak about it, but willing to meet to ensure that not only was the situation dealt with, but dealt with effectively so that they can be the best student and individual, really, that they could be.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I want to add another question to what I answered just now, because you spoke about meeting. Now that we are in a virtual environment situation, I am assuming it's not as convenient for a student to just leave the classroom and stroll over to your office as I would have been able to do. Now you have to arrange meetings with students on, I guess, Zoom or any other platform virtually.
Yes.
That's how things are being done at this point in time, or would you still arrange a face-to-face because of the sensitive nature of the matter?
Well, no, but most of our, if not all of my meetings have been via Zoom, but it is interesting because you would think that sometimes because there's not that face-to-face, students would not be comfortable speaking, but I have realized that with the online, they seem more comfortable speaking than face-to-face. But it has been working out well, and we all understand the situation, and both the students and the counselors, not just myself, but the other guidance counselors in the country, have been making the best of it, and it has been working. We still miss the face-to-face, though.
Of course. And I want to speak to Marissa for a second. Marissa, you are a young person as well, a student as well. We have spoken to different students over the last 2 weeks about their respective trials. How has it been for you as a young person trying to cope with the pandemic and your studies at the same time? Okay, Marissa, can you hear me? Okay, if Marissa is stuck, we'll put a pin in that and we'll bring that question back to her. Okay, right, so Mr. Gaskin, I don't want to make you feel left out of the conversation today. Mr. Gaskin, sir, I have a question for you as well. Based on your expertise with working at the psychiatric hospital, you would have, for over 20 years, you would have seen a lot of situations where people would have come in and gone out, being institutionalized, medicated and everything. There are even cases where people are outpatients. Has that number increased since the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of people being institutionalized in the psychiatric hospital? Okay, so we seem to have a little technical difficulty at this point in time, so what we're going to do is introduce our second video discussing mental health with a Vox Pop.
Mental health is an issue with people being traumatized, people being not focused on seeing the ordinary. Mental health stems from what people feed their brain, and some is by accident and some is on purpose. Some people don't even realize that they're messing with their brains, but I don't really think it's that big an issue. Finding help for mental health should be very easy because it's something that is very common, and you shouldn't have to, be searching here or searching there, because everyone's problems are not easily explainable to the average person.
Yes, and there you have it. So based on what that young man was saying in the video, the thing that I found most interesting about what he said was the fact that mental health is what we choose to take on upon ourselves. I agree with that to some degree, but I also do understand that outside influences all do play a part in our mental journey. I also want to encourage everybody to get down in the comment section on the Division of Youth Affairs Facebook page, and because the most engaging person is going to get that prize for the dinner for two at Pure Ocean Restaurant at DB Southwinds Hotel. So get down in the comment section and also share and like as well. Now, when it comes to mental health, we all have different stories. We all have things that we have encountered personally. And for me, mental health is something that I personally did not really understand the way that I do now. I want to take a second and speak about depression, because depression is something that I don't think the average Barbadian really understood in its truest context. Before, we thought depression was something as simple as, okay, I feel a little down today, things didn't go how I wanted them to go, so I am depressed. We have to learn to understand the power behind these words and these terms, because at the end of the day, they actually mean something. And depression is actually a clinical, well, I should say a clinical diagnosis of the brain, because depression is a brain disorder. It pretty much means that the brain has an imbalance chemically, and sometimes medication is needed in addition with counseling. So what we want to do with today's episode is to sensitize people to different terms and educate people on the true depths of mental health, because it's a very serious topic and is even more pervasive and pertinent in these times because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has taken a toll on many people. It's taken lives. It's cost people jobs. People are in all kinds of financial ruin. It's a very serious situation out there. It has put families under a lot of strain. It has taken a toll on us all. And that's why we thought it was necessary to speak on this topic today. Our panelists hopefully should be back shortly, but we just want to keep you all engaged, keep you all having that conversation with us, because we know everyone has stories. I have stories. I can share my stories, but I also want to hear from your stories in the comment section. I realized today too that a lot of people are... Okay, so we have Kim back. So Kim, thank you for returning. My next question for you that I had asked Mr. Gaskin was, based on the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the fallout from it, have we been seeing an increase in people with serious mental health issues in Barbados?
I think that, well, for me, all mental health issues I consider serious, because I think that if they're not dealt with at a smaller level, before you know it, it has mushroomed out of control, and it really becomes an issue that takes more to get back on track. I do believe that, I don't think it's that we are having more serious mental health issues. I think that people are more open coming forward about them. Maybe they've always been there, but people have been afraid to say anything for fear of being labeled, for fear of being judged. But as the doctor was saying earlier, the space and the knowledge has made it more open for people to be more open about their mental health. So you're seeing more people come forward and more people being comfortable saying, well, I go to a therapist, or I've seen a psychologist, or I am seeing a psychologist, and saying that without fear of reprimand and without fear of judgment. I think that is the biggest issue that we've had so far.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. And when you spoke about seeing counselors without fear of judgment, Dr. Forsyth Hill, do you think we should push more for people to see counselors even if they don't think something is wrong, just to make it a healthy practice in our daily lives? Because if as parents, our children see us making this part of our, routine, it may become more normalized to them for future generations. So would you agree with that notion?
Almost definitely. And I could speak to that on a positive note, in that the trend that I'm actually seeing amongst the young adults in Barbados is that a lot of them are actually recognizing the need for a mental health check-in, just like a physical checkup that you got annually. A lot of them are actually coming forward to they say, I just want you to be able to tell me if I'm managing correctly, or am I okay? And at that point, there's some persons that is because there's nothing wrong with coming for an assessment or just coming for a visit, because you can just talk out issues that you're having. You might just need a listening ear. You might need a second opinion on a decision that you've made, or guidance in making a decision. And if I could just tap back to the question that you would have asked Ms. Jones, is in the community, for sure, in discussing with my colleagues who are the community psychiatrists at the polyclinics, they have seen an increase in presentation of persons with anxiety and depression generally. to their clinics. I do not have stats for you, unfortunately. The only we are working on that right now. But what I can say is that what we have noticed, particularly in the youth, so in between the ages of 12 and 24, last year, on the between a period of, I think it was January 2020 to 2021, what we recognize is that the highest presentation to our assessment unit at the psychiatric hospital, which is our version of asking emergency for mental health, is that between the ages of 12 and 24, we actually saw that age group had the highest number of either calls or presentations to the assessment unit for either threats or thoughts or even attempts at self-harm. So whether in various forms, so even just a thought, and that was increased it was higher in the 12 to 24 age group.
Thank you so much, Dr. Forsyth Hill. Mr. Gaskin, as you also have worked in the area of the psychiatric hospital for over 20 years, she just spoke about issues or instances of self-harm and the increased numbers of, people being admitted for different reasons to the psychiatric hospital. Do you have anything to add with regards to your personal observations in that area?
I've found we need to create an awareness within the society, within families, about the utterances people make that would indicate that there's something going on with them that would indicate the intent to self-harm. And from my particular situation, from my vantage, when I occupy a space people and is in a situation where a lot of information is shared about mental health, they become acutely aware or curious about acquiring even more information. And I find very often when we talk about suicide and suicide ideations and some of the content that would be verbalized by a person experiencing an inclination to harm themselves, a lot of them report to me that they have heard their friends say that, and they at some point in time would have said something along the lines. But I find for me key to making or disseminating better information about mental health is about very rational programs targeting the youth in particular. I know that concerned primarily with youth is between that age 10 to 19. A significant percentage of them seem to be suffering from anxiety and depression, and we know that it ultimately can result in suicide behaviors.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaskin. And Marissa, I had a question for you earlier, but we had a little technical difficulty there. So as a young person, amongst your peer group, do you guys discuss mental health in terms of seeking measures to combat it, like going to therapy, going to a counselor, going to a psychologist or anything like that? Is that normalized discussion amongst your peer group?
Well, what I must say, it is normalized. I'm not sure if it's because most of my peer group do psychology or health sciences, and also UWI does offer counseling as well, and they do promote it in the sense that they always send emails, just reminders letting us know if you do need to seek counseling, that is there for you. I also, to just tap back to what Dr. Ford would have said, like regarding statistics, UNICEF actually did research on the impact of mental health within Latin America and Caribbean countries. What was found from the most recent one, which is done in 2021, is that suicide was the third leading cause of adolescent or youth death.
Yes,
between the ages of 10 to 19.
10 to 19, which is essentially very, very young people. So once again, we're trying to get people to a place where they understand that just because you're young, it does not mean that automatically you're alleviated of all worries and concerns. We live in a very trying time. Different things like social media and other stimulants and stuff put a lot of pressure on young people to live up to certain standards. So we're just trying to sensitize people to the issues of young people. So what we're going to do is take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with some more talk about mental health. And welcome back to the Listen Up Accord Show, sorry. And today we're discussing mental health with our panel today. So we have been talking about different areas of mental health in terms of seeking help when you feel like something is wrong, normalizing certain actions like going to therapy and everything, and realizing that you can't do everything on your own. Help needs to be sought, and also sensitizing people generally to certain activities with regards to seeking help in that regard. We've been hearing the terms neurotypical and neurodivergent, and a lot of people have been asking me, what does that mean exactly? So I was saying that I will use this platform today as an opportunity to get a clear definition on what it is. I don't know if Dr. Forsyth Hill or Ms. Jones or Mr. Gaskin or even one of the younger people would be willing to explain what exactly are the differences between neurotypical and neurodivergent individuals. Dr. Forsyth Hill?
I think we should probably defer to the doc.
Okay, well, Dr. Forsyth Hill then, could you please be so kind?
I was giving one of these students a chance to.
Well, whoever wants to answer, because I would like to know myself, because, yeah, I'm very curious about that answer.
All right, so neurodivergent persons basically refer to people whose brain structures and brain chemistry diverge, hence the term neurodivergent, to persons who are neurotypical. And what we would realize when it comes to mental health is that sometimes it is, as in the cause, remember the causes of mental ill health are not always clear, but what we have realized is that sometimes mental ill health is based on chemical imbalances. So for example, depression. There are certain, there are certain chemicals in our brain, like serotonin, that a depletion of which may contribute to depression. So, sometimes you may look at someone, especially among the youth, and you say, well, why are you depressed? You don't have anything wrong with you. You have money, you have this, you have that. Why are you depressed? You have no reason to be. Not realizing that they may very well be neurodivergent and that there's something going on, something covert with their brain that is making them feel that way, that they may not necessarily have any control over, which further emphasizes the fact that going and seeking help is very critical, because this is something that a mental health professional would be able to assist with, be able to identify, and even help diagnose.
Thank you, Tashira. So essentially what you're saying is the same way how you could have a situation where your liver has a disorder, there are different organs in the human body that can fall susceptible to illness or different ailments and stuff. The brain also is an organ. It is also susceptible to illness and sickness as well. I think that's what Tashira was trying to say. So the same way the liver, the kidneys, and other organs can suffer, the brain can suffer as well. It's just that we don't look at it in the same way. We are more willing to go to the doctor when something is hurting internally, but when we feel a little off up top, sometimes we just put it aside and attribute some other cause to that. So as I said today, we're trying to really just sensitize and educate everyone out there on what mental illness is, and just get everybody on the same page. So my next question is for Marissa. Right, Marissa, my question for you is, in your typical dealings and everything with school and whatnot, what methods have you used as coping mechanisms to deal with all that you have to face in terms of school and, your development and everything? Because everybody has coping mechanisms.
So what I must say is, Tashira and I would have entered UE in 2019. We would have been face to face for 1.5 semesters total. So going from that then to the electronic method, being at home, having to use Zoom, it really took a toll on, my mental health. And what some people don't realize is that when you do experience issues with your mental health, it can trickle down into other issues, like physical issues and social issues. So two problems that I encountered would have been, just feeling demotivated to do just the daily functions like eating and had trouble sleeping. So to cope with that, what I would have done was I exercised. So it, lockdown didn't really prevent me because I realized I needed to do something. So I would go on YouTube, I would search some videos and take at least an hour out from my day, whether it be before school or after school, and just exercise at home and maybe go outside and exercise as well, just to get some fresh air. And also, what I would have done is something called a worry tree. So, kind of like picture a Christmas tree, and at the top of the tree, you would put what your issue is, what you may be struggling with. Then you ask yourself, you come down, you ask yourself, is there something that I can actually do about this? And then you form other questions that can help you find a solution, even though you may feel in that time that there is no solution to what you're going through. So those are just two things that I would have done, and I found them to be extremely helpful.
Thanks so much for that, Marissa, because you said something that I found extremely interesting, and it actually derived another question for me. Dr. Forsyth Hill, I have been told on multiple occasions that exercise and basically being active in general can help to combat the effects of depression. I wanted to hear from a professional's perspective how accurate that is, or if it's more of a loosely based statement.
Oh no, that is extremely accurate. And I was smiling the entire time that Marissa was speaking, because I said I'm very glad that this is coming out, because I cannot stress the importance of nutrition, aka a healthy diet. But I don't like to use the word nutrition, how important balanced nutrition. So I'm not saying any particular diet, whether you are vegan, whether you decide you want to do keto to lose weight, but just a healthy nutrition plan, as well as frequent, hopefully daily exercise, can actually make a huge difference to your mental health and either maintaining your mental health or actually as part of your management of any mental health problem that you are experiencing. So I'm glad that that was brought up.
Yes, because thank you for affirming that for me. I've heard it from a professional, so that means it has to be true. So I really appreciate that, Dr. Forsyth Hill. Mr. Gaskin, sir, based on what was just discussed about the link between exercise and activity and everything, in your current profession, in your line of work, you deal with not only the professional side, but you also are an educator. You deal with students and everything. Do you take time out to speak to your students on, even if it's a sidebar, about what they can do to really help cope with the effects of this pandemic and everything, knowing what they have to endure?
Yes, I live by the creed that there's nothing more potent than the silent influence example. And I myself put myself out there with the context of exercise. I have a social media forum for which I straight that I work out every day, and to allow my students to see that I'm not a person who preaches but don't practice. So yes, important. I remember coming out of the first COVID cycle, we had a situation where persons were coming out complaining about the clothes weren't fitted. They weren't getting an opportunity to go to the hairdresser and do those things. And when I'm having my live online sessions, I keep reiterating it's the importance of movement and exercise. I also want to put a plug here really quick. Earlier you asked about neurotypical and neurodivergent, and we talk about neurotypical normal functioning brain as good cognitive functioning. Neurodivergent, we look at people along the spectrum. But I also want to add a new point in there where we're talking about something called neurodiversity. where we can appreciate that people's brains function and process things that in different ways. So we have to find ways now not to discriminate persons, but understand that people function at different levels, and there's always a space for which people can come and make their contribution, even wise able. And that's the point I wanted to add in there really quick.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaskin, because I'm learning a lot today about how the brain works and the different categorizations of people based on their neurological patterns and stuff like that. So this is a very, very riveting conversation we're having here today. Ms. Jones, a question that came up just now in my mind, and I think is a question a lot of people have been wondering about for a while now. As a counselor, do you seek counseling from anyone? Because barbers don't necessarily always cut their own hair, so we just wanted to know if counselors go anywhere for counseling from someone else.
I don't think a barber should ever cut their own hair.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do. That is true. That is
Yeah.
true. Yes. I always, and my mother actually, who was a former guidance counselor before myself, that is something that she always would say: who counsels the counselor? And I have another counselor that I go to, and I think that it's extremely important that counselors have a space to, counselors, therapists, psychologists have a space to reboot and recalibrate and reset. That is extremely important. You absorb a lot when you're a counselor. You, and especially if you're an empath, if you're empathetic, if you don't find a way to release what you are empathizing with, it can end up taking a toll on you. I remember when I first was a counselor, I did not understand how to release, and it began to affect my health. So it is important to have a pastor, a counselor, your own psychologist, your own therapist, and not only that too, but find your safe place. Your safe place. What is your place? Your place of peace? Is it being in the garden? Is it? I'm a dog lover, so is it being out with the dogs? Is it just being quiet and reading your own books or meditating? These things are so important because that resetting and calibrating and that rebooting is so critical, not only to you as a counselor to do your job, but for you as a person to maintain and preserve your own mental health. That's extremely important. So yes, I do have a counselor. In fact, I have about 3.
Yes, well, thank you so much for that, Ms. Jones, because, yes, I was wondering about it, so I'm glad that you provided that answer for me. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
If you're suffering with mental health troubles, I believe it will probably be in your best interest to try to reach out to get professional help, or maybe even try talking to a friend, because mental health is more common than you think. You could probably walk past somebody right now and they could probably be suffering from depression, the verge of suicide. And suicide is not an option that we would like, because you could probably contribute more to society and help change the world. There's places out there for you to get help, people to talk to. Family and friends may not always be the best option because they might not know exactly how to help you through your troubling times or situations, and they might not believe you. That is why it'll probably be better to get professional help.
And we're back to the Listen Up Accord show, and today we're discussing mental health, and we're getting very in-depth here today. And I want to remind you to go and comment, like, and share on the Division of Youth Affairs Facebook page or the CBC Barbados Facebook page, because you can win a prize for dinner for two at Pure Ocean Restaurant at DB South Hotel. Why miss out on something like that? So, yes. So, the video that we watched just now with the young man speaking, it really hit me in a very serious place, because he spoke about suicide, and seeing people so young talking about suicide is heart-wrenching. But he said if you want to seek help and you don't want your friends to know, pretty much you want to maintain anonymity but still seek help, there are places for you to go. So my question for, I guess anyone could answer this question: where would a young person, let's say I'm a person who is 19 years old, I feel emotionally burdened, I don't know what exactly is wrong, but I know I don't feel right mentally. Is consuming me is taking me over, but I don't know where to go, I don't know who to call. I mean, when I was growing up, we had stuff like the Samaritans and stuff, but what provisions are in place for young people at this point in time who want to seek help but don't want anyone to know about it?
There's steps and there's a spectrum to this, right?
Okay.
So a typical, as you said, 19 years, it depends on where they are in life. So let's say they're at a tertiary level institution. Remember that most of the, if not all, of the tertiary level institutions have some sort of counseling program. So you can always reach out to either the guidance counselor, the University of West Indies has a health center, as well as Barbados Community College has a counseling and placement center. And they have good relationships with higher professionals as well. Now, barring that, nothing is as good as a good friend. That's the truth. So you can start by venting to a friend or somebody that you trust. It might be a relative. You can also seek counsel with your religious leader. So it depends on your religious persuasion. Some of them are actually very good at counseling, and some of them are actually trained as counselors as well. And then, of course, you have counseling, private counseling services. I'm not going to call any names because I'm not promoting anybody. But then publicly, like as I was or the psychiatric hospital has an assessment unit that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And of course, as medical professionals, nurses, and doctors who are on duty 24 hours a day, we are held to keep all of your information private. Confidentiality is one of the tenets of our practice. There's also, you can also go through even your family doctor or your general practitioner. They can refer you to, we have clinics at every polyclinic. There's the QEH also has a psychiatry department, so they have an outpatients clinic as well. So it's wherever you feel comfortable, but there's also private psychologists and private psychiatrists. And this is where I can say I think it's the Barbados Society of Psychologists or Psychological Society actually has a very good Facebook page with a lot of resources in terms of contacting their members, their specialties and everything. And then the Barbados Association of Psychiatrists as well. And they have both Instagram and Facebook pages.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ford St. Hill. And I see Nicole Hollingsworth was saying that we need to pay special attention to our children at this point in time. I agree with her 100% because, as I said more than once, people think that the children, once you provide them with basic amenities and give them a tablet for them to watch stuff on, that they should be fine. And that's what we're trying to bring people around to. The fact that it's not as simple as that. People are carrying around a lot of load emotionally and mentally at this point in time, especially because of this pandemic. So, Tashira, just now, Dr. Ford St. Hill spoke about the fact that you can't really overlook the effectiveness of a good friend. Right, you can't really overlook the effectiveness of a good friend. Would you say that you have a confidant, someone that in your darkest moments you can always rely on, at least having a very heart-to-heart conversation with them? Because some people actually don't have that support system in place.
Yes, that's very true. And what I would say is that, yes, indeed I do. I'm actually very blessed to say that I have some family members that I can reach out to, my sister, my mother, my father, stepmother, and some close friends as well. I don't have a very long friend list, but the few people that I do have, I can say that it is easy to reach out. And one thing I can say, and this was mentioned briefly before, was that during the COVID-19 pandemic, more people tend to be coming out, despite the fact that we are online, coming out talking about their mental health problems. And this was one area that I was examining, and that's something called the online disinhibition effect. And what it basically means is that the confidentiality, anonymity associated with being online, not necessarily people seeing your face or hearing your voice. If you're that type of person, you're very introverted, you're very shy, and it's difficult for you to talk face to face. I know some people say that from the time they start talking about their problems, they start crying to the point that they can't stop, and that makes people shut in. That makes people not want to come forward and talk about certain things. But this online environment, it can provide a basis to start. I'm not saying that it's an end solution, but if you know that you are not very comfortable coming out talking in person, I would say that you can always start online, have a conversation with people that you trust. And it can, as Dr. Forsyth Hill said, it is definitely can be very effective, because as people, we are social creatures, and so being able to rely on someone else, it goes a long way.
Thank you so much for that, Tashira. I saw Miss Letitia Coward. She said in the comment section, and thank you for contributing towards the comment section, she said we need help for primary school children because it seems like if that is a faction of society that is overlooked. I remember being in primary school and preparing for the 11 plus exam. I experienced a lot of anxiety because I felt a lot of performance pressure was on me. I was going to lessons 3 days a week. It was a lot of pressure on me, and I did not know how to express that anxiety because I was very young and we were not as cultured when it comes to mental health issues and everything like that. So my question for Ms. Jones, when it comes to primary school children who obviously would not be as vocal or as able to express what they're experiencing, what do we have in place to monitor their behaviors in the primary school system and be able to approach them or approach their parents, which would be more appropriate, to organize some kind of counseling from a very early age?
This is something that, interestingly enough, I have been discussing with the school counselor, the other school counselor at my school, because she was actually a primary school counselor before she came over to Commonwealth School. And Mrs. Huxley and I were discussing this because for lack of a better way, she was actually dealing with more than one school. So a lot of times that burden alone is extremely heavy. You have young people who, and you were going back to your 11 plus days, which is true. And a lot of times by the time those children hit first form, some of them are very burnt out from the lessons and the stress of the 11 plus. And some of that stress has been going on since class 2, in some cases since class 1. So I do believe that it is necessary. I know that the Ministry of Education also works with the primary schools. There are some school counselors that are spread across the primary schools, but there's not one specific at every primary school the way that there is at least one specifically at every secondary school. I know that is something that the Ministry of Education is desirous of examining, because for me, I do believe that if we can grab a lot of the issues at the primary level and get a harness on those issues at the primary level, then they get to secondary school, while we may still have to deal with it as counselors, at least to speaking about their mental health, there is no stigma attached to it, and as a result it is easier to work through the process at that point in time.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I agree with you 100%. The earlier we get to doing this, the more it could be normalized, and then it will become something that people just naturally see as a method to help.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we'll take another quick commercial break and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Listen Up Accord show. And our topic today is mental health. We're discussing that in depth with our 5 panelists, and it's going quite well. Unfortunately, we are in the final throes of this discussion. I can't believe an hour has gone by so quickly, but time flies when you're having fun and you're really engrossed in interesting subject matter. So what I want to do at this point in time is give everyone an opportunity to just give their final thoughts, just a summation of what they would like to most adequately convey to the listeners out there with regards to mental health, seeking help, and emboldening yourself to learn more about mental health as well. So anyone can start, and we'll just do a round robin.
I can probably start off. My submission would be to mental health professionals and to counselors and to teachers and to psychiatrists and psychologists. Your mental health is as important as your client's mental health. Ensure that you seek out your mental health counselor, that is your own counselor, your own mental health pastor. Make sure that you protect your mental health. As much as you pour out, you need to pour into you. So as you take care of your clients, please make sure that you take care of yourself.
Yes, self-care is important. We have to take care of ourselves. We can't pour from an empty cup. I agree with that sentiment 100%. Mr. Gaskin, any final sentiments for you, sir?
Yes, sir. I really want to commend you on the optics. I saw a young man speaking and encouraging persons to go out as it pertains to the mental health. I think optics like that are very important. I think from a cultural perspective, our men tend to have poorer health saviors. And if you can give more representation where we can inform and educate, where men can feel comfortable coming forward, young men in particular, coming forward and speaking openly about the issues that are confronting them and the challenges that are having, especially now during the COVID bit of isolation. I'm particularly interested in promoting men's health. I want young men to really take note and speak to your young men through your youth through your forums to get them really involved with sharing and opening up more about their mental health situations and anxieties.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaskin. And I saw Catherine Strong in the comments saying that she really enjoyed today's show. And we are all enjoying it as well, too. So thank you for that kind comment, Catherine. Tashira, any final words?
Yes, one thing I want to say to the youth, whoever may be listening, is that you should pay more attention to those good moments as well. When we hear the word mental health, we typically go directly towards the illnesses, the disorders. But as humans, we are very inclined, we have a bias towards focusing on the negative. So with that being said, I want to say that when there is positive in your life, focus on it, remember it, dwell in it. It's so easy to dwell in the negative, and sometimes we have to be actively working on dwelling on the positive. And the last thing is just don't wait until it's too late to seek out counseling. Don't wait until you can't get out of bed, so you don't want to get out of bed to seek out counseling. If you think that you may have a problem that you need assistance with, reach out to someone. It can go a very long way.
Thank you so much, Tashira. And Marissa, Any final words?
So I'd like to add also a message to the youth as well, about trying to seek help as early as you can, even though you may think that it might be something small, and also to send a message to, parents and even educators, the same way that someone who may be suffering from any mental disorders, you can also seek help in regards to getting education or becoming more aware, so that maybe if you can spot the signs from early, you can work with your child, your student, to helping them seek help as well, because mental health is so dynamic, and because of the stigma, sometimes people may pass it off as, you're just being lazy, or so I would just say, try to see education in ways that you can help persons.
Thank you so much, Marissa. And last but not least, Dr. Forsyth Hill. Any quick last words?
What I want to stress to Barbados is that, and particularly parents, this is not a normal time. We are not necessarily ever going back to what we were before, and it requires a level of adjustment and flexibility. And if you think it is hard for you, imagine your children. So this is the time to spend time listening to your children. This is the time to spend more time with your children. As busy as we are, turn all the negatives into a positive. We're inside a lot. We have gotten some relaxations to be outside, but still do not forget the mental health of your children. Make sure they get into activities. Make sure that they're not eating corn kernels and soda for breakfast. Make sure that you stay in tune, and we will be on the right track.
Thank you so much, Dr. Forsyth Hill. And I just want to thank all of our panelists for being so engaging, being so forthcoming with all this valid information. I learned a lot here today. In summation, it's important to understand that we can't do this alone. We need to normalize seeking help. We need to normalize being sensitive to mental health and mental health issues. That is the main crux of what we wanted to discuss today. The information is out there, and we need to educate ourselves and also look out for our brothers and sisters as well. So what I want to do is thank everybody for tuning in today. For the people who were engaging in the comment section, I saw all of you. Gabby Becca Williams, I saw your comment. Thank you so much for the encouraging words and everything. And also I want to prompt you to understand that next week's topic is about vaccinations and how Barbadian citizens feel about the vaccine. So this has been the conclusion of our show for today on the topic of mental health. This is Listen Up Accord, brought to you by the Division of Youth Affairs within the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Community Empowerment. This is your host, Dwayne Gibbs, signing off, and everybody please have a wonderful and safe weekend.